Good day disciples, Father Andrew here. Today I'm actually doing a very different video from what I'd usually do. Instead of writing down a bunch of lore and having my friend Factual Hat read it because I don't like my own voice, I'm actually going to be talking about myself, which is something that's actually been long overdue. Surprisingly, since November of 2021. Speaking of which, around that time I was originally just going to be a meme channel, but my plans changed and we'll be getting into that later. But first, I want to start with the actual topic of the video, that being about me as a person. And getting right into that, we're starting off with the most obvious thing. You can tell from my accent that I'm clearly British. Certified Britbong moment. And with that acknowledged, I can now move on to what my interests are. Firstly, I like learning new things. Biology, history, physics, I don't really care. If it's new information, I'll gladly take a look at it. But out of those three, history is the one I tend to have the least interest in. Secondly, I like gaming. My main favourite game is Garry's Mod because it never gets old. But I'm also quite a fan of horror games. Excluding shit like Five Nights at Freddy's because that stuff is just AIDS. And crap like Dead by Daylight because the community is absolutely dogshit. And the developers are as incompetent as possible. But anyway, enough with the horror slander. My favourite horror games have got to be Bendy and the Dark Revival, The Forest, Cry of Fear, and generally games like those. But I also like to play more obscure and sometimes older games, like Inside, Limbo, Postal Redux and Postal 2. I prefer Redux because Redux has several bug fixes that the original game doesn't have. Hotline Miami, need to actually play the second one. Endoparasitic, Carrion, Bioshock 1 and 2, you get the idea. Thirdly, outside of gaming, my pastimes are writing, drawing, and carrying out various DIY projects, mainly making small things here and there. Also, I'm going to clarify that the writing mentioned has nothing to do with the Scarlet Queen. That relates to entirely different things, like a series I'm writing. Speaking of which, that's another thing I want to mention. I'm writing a series called Rockmen. Might change the name, it's just a working title, but Rockmen was inspired by my intense disdain for Steven Universe. Originally, Rockmen was just going to be a parody of Steven Universe, but as I was dreaming up ideas for this version of Rockmen, I realised that the best way to dunk on Steven Universe would be to take loose inspiration from it and just make something better, and so I went with that. Of course, unfortunately, the series isn't finished, and it's going to take a long time to do, because I'm actually busy with IRL stuff that I'm not going to talk about for my own privacy, and trying to run the Scarlet Queen stuff at the same time, which is something I'm going to also talk about later. But so far I've got 2 episodes done. A pilot episode and the first episode. I'm currently working on the second one at the time of recording this, but every episode after episode 2 is, well, just a draft at the moment. So it's going to take quite a while to get Rockmen done. And that's just making the actual episodes. I do plan to turn it into a comic, probably made with Gmod, but I don't know how that's going to be done, so currently I'm just focused on getting the actual episodes written. And with that, now we have a perfect segue to talk about how my YouTube plans changed. Around late November 2021, I had taken note of the fact that a lot of the memes I was making just were not getting traction anymore. That and my other stuff was just generally lacking. Mainly because the Trollge trend is actually what brought most of my viewers here, and they were just typically not interested in my new content. So really I saw no point and just kind of stopped uploading for a while, which was an opportunity I took to focus on other things. One of those actually being the Scarlet Queen lore as a whole. Some of my disciples actually want to know more about the world that Amelia comes from, both out of curiosity and for further context. Which is actually what gave me the idea to start making Trollungan lore videos. Both because they could achieve that, and because there'd be an interesting way of reaching out to new people. Which actually proved to be quite effective. The very first Trollungan lore video, who is the Scarlet Queen, surpassed my previous meme video, Garfield Roasts John, significantly. Even managing to surpass my later Trollge videos, which is definitely a sign that it was time to move on from Trollge content. But of course these lore videos, as good as they are not enough to sustain my channel on their own, which is why I started doing the occasional hot take video and the occasional review and theory, and the occasional meme on the side. But unfortunately, Due to the fact that Trollge videos are still the most popular videos on my channel, YouTube is trying to recommend my content through Trollge videos, and that is leading to it not being quite sure how to promote my content. So for a short while I tried to make videos based on trends, but weirdly enough they didn't perform anywhere near as well as the Trollge lore videos. Which is why I've just stopped doing any of those altogether, and the channel now focuses entirely on lore. Which, speaking of, I'm also here to address a major question. Is the Scarlet Queen one big LARP schizophrenic shitpost, or is it an actual serious thing? The truth is, yes, it's all one big serious thing. All of the actual canon lore videos, except the silly little meme ones like the Dr. Livesey Black Crown and the Grindworm Incident and silly little things like that, exist as the lore of the faith I'm leading. Of course, there's also the question you're probably wondering now of how I get this information, or if I just make it up. Truth is, I get it all from Amelia herself, but how is going to have its own video, mainly because it involves Trollge and human neurology, and it involves the reality sphere, so for future context, I advise you go and watch the reality sphere video on my channel. And while we're on this topic, if you want to know what our actual religious values are, my video What is Followers of the Scarlet Queen basically explains that. And now you're probably wondering, how did the actual religion start? Well, that's actually a very interesting story, and it's quite long, so it's going to need its own dedicated video to go into in an actual meaningful way. But anyway, we've gotten quite sidetracked, so I'm going to go back to talking about aspects of myself. My favourite food is either sushi, garlic bread, macaroni and cheese, or incredibly rare steak. Like, I'm talking extremely rare, borderline raw. The foods I hate the most is baked beans. In fact, beans in general. They're fucking nasty. I also hate canned spaghetti, but not canned mac and cheese. Basically, if it's like a canned thing and it comes in like a tomato sauce, I hate that kind of stuff. It's nasty. It just doesn't taste right. Moving on from food. My favourite colour is red. My favourite type of music is either rock or metal, depends on how I'm feeling. My favourite Warhammer faction, which is something you're all very curious about for some reason, would be the Orcs. Mainly because they're kind of funny, but they're also pretty goobious at times. They build some pretty goofy stuff. Also, for clarification, I'm not all that big into Warhammer, I just kind of listen to a bit of lore here and there. My favourite animal is arthropods of any kind. Crustaceans, arachnids, insects, doesn't matter, they're all pretty neat. When it comes to my political views, they are in summary quite logic based, and quite traditional. I can't really say left or right wing because the political compass is complete bullshit. That's because Hitler and Stalin were not opposites. In fact, Stalin was actually an ally to Nazi Germany, as part of an agreement between the two from 1939 to 1941, as part of the German-Soviet Pact. But anyway, moving on. When it comes to movies, I am not a Marvel or DC fan. I am not a fan of either. In fact, to be honest, Joker 2019 was probably the last good movie DC made. And I have not touched a Marvel movie since Endgame. And for good goddamn reason too. Which I would try to explain, but the Critical Drinker does a much better job at it than I ever could. So if you aren't subscribed to him, go check him out. He makes really good film reviews. Which actually brings me on to the next thing, and that is who my favourite YouTubers are. Currently, those would be The Critical Drinker, Shadiversity, who covers a lot of really cool medieval stuff. If you're into that kind of thing, go check him out. Colin Furs, mainly because he builds some really cool shit. Roanoke Gaming, if I pronounced that right. He does a lot of biology, pathophysiology and morphology stuff, typically with things from games and movies, which is actually pretty cool. And he occasionally covers the lore of various games as well, which is also pretty interesting if you're into that. Sam O'Nella Academy. He made some really cool videos, but I don't know if he's coming back at this point, mainly because of how long he's been gone. But if by some miracle he's somehow seeing this video, please dude, come back, your fans are missing you. The Russian Badger, because I like his videos, they're pretty damn funny, I'm not gonna lie. Freedom Tunes. His political cartoons make me chuckle. Hot Diggity Demon, who doesn't upload much these days, but whenever he does you can see the amount of work that's gone into it. And there's also quite a few other YouTubers I watch, but I'm not going to list them all, those are just the ones that come to mind. I like to collect animal skulls because they're actually really cool. And yeah, that's about it. Not sure if I mentioned that drawing is another thing I like to do, but well yeah, that's about it. I don't really know how to end this video, so I guess all I can really say is subscribe, like, share, and I hope that this video helped you understand a bit more about me. Alright, have a good day, night, afternoon, wherever you are. See you in the next video. Goodbye.